Hi everyone. Today we're going to cover lecture 9. In this video, we're going to talk about money. All of us like to have money, right? So we're going to understand what money is, what are the functions of money, and what role the money plays in the economy. That's what this lecture is all about. Okay. So before we start talking about money, we're gonna the way we used to trade goods and services was through a system called barter system. So in the past, people used to exchange goods and services using the barter system. So there was no money at that time, or there was no paper money or dollar bills at that time. So what people used to do is they used to exchange goods and services for other goods and services. For instance, let's say John would exchange two pigs for one of Blake's cow. Okay, so they would exchange two different goods in order to meet that demand, or they would exchange a service for a good. Like, let's say I would give you a pen if you give me a haircut. So this is a barter system. Again, this was in the past, it was not very efficient, but that is how people traded in the past. Now, it is not very efficient and it did not facilitate market. Sometimes, let's say if I go to you and say, hey, take this pen and in return give me a haircut, you can always say, I don't need this pen, I already have a pen. So then I have to find someone in the market who will accept the pen and who has the skills to perform the haircut for me, right? So it is very inefficient because I have to look for the person who can give me haircut service in return for the money. And also uh, I'm restricted with in terms of location, because I cannot distance far away. I cannot travel far away distances in order to get the services just for by giving one pen. Okay, so this type of system is very difficult, and it does not facilitate the market. So ultimately, people moved to a different system that where money played an important role and money was created so that trade could take place between people. So, what is actually money? What is the formal definition of money? So, anything that is generally accepted as payment for goods and services and for employment is considered to be money. So, anyone who is willing to accept payment in return for goods and services, let's say I want to buy a milk and I pay something for that the person selling the milk accepts it, that can be defined as money. And money is also accepted as employment. So if I am working at a company and they pay me something that I accept as my income, then that is considered to be money. Okay, so US dollar is a form of money. Okay, for the Federal Reserve it is a liability, and are called Federal Reserve notes. Okay, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. But the formal definition is anything that is accepted as a mean for the payment of a good and services and for employment is considered to be money. Now, Fed in the US economy, the Federal Reserve is the entity that controls the supply of money. So if the Fed increases the supply of dollars faster than the output of goods and services, then more dollars will be used to buy goods and services, and purchasing power of each dollar will decrease, right? So if the supply of dollar increases compared to the demand, then definitely price of the value of the dollar will go down because there's too much supply of dollar in the market, whereas there's not much demand for it. Okay, so the value will go down. Now, in the previous, once money was created and trade was taking place, people used different types of things as money, which people accepted as a means of payment or as a form of income for employment. Some examples of money form is animal skins, animal teeth, seashells, precious metals such as gold or silver. This is still accepted, right? We still have those coins that we accept, and that is a money form. Okay. Then tobacco during the colonial period, tobacco was considered a money form and accepted as a means of payment for other goods and services. And then finally, cigarettes. Like in some locations during World War II, cigarettes were accepted as a means of payment to get or to buy other goods and services. So these are the different types of money forms that it has taken place in the past. So what are the characteristics of money? What makes something, or what makes an item a money? So an item or a thing is defined as money if it has the following characteristics. First of all, it must be portable. So we must be able to carry this thing in different places without any difficulties. Assume if we used cows for money, it would be really difficult to take the money with us when we go shopping, right? I mean, we can only take one cow, and it's just so weird and awkward to take a cow to go to Walmart and buy something. Think about it, right? So dollar must be easily transported, and we can take cash with us or a debit card or check, and that helps us to buy anything that we want in the store or online. Okay, so the first characteristic is money needs to be portable. Second, the money needs to be durable. It should be able to last for a long period of time. Again, let's assume we use chicken for money, the chicken meat. This will probably not last for long in a purse, right? It's going to start rotting, and the smell is going to spread, and the bag is going to get wasted. So the US dollar is durable. It is hard to tear and seems to last a long period of time before wearing out. Dollars that are electronically recorded in the bank accounts do not even experience wearing and tearing, right? So it is durable. Then money needs to, another characteristics of money is it needs to be divisible. So divisible means $100 bills, you can break it down into 50, 20, 10, 10, 10, right? Or let's say $10 bills, you can break it down into $1, $1, $1, 10, $1 bills. Okay, so you should be able to break it down into smaller pieces. Now, if we use hard metals, they are often difficult to break it down into smaller parts. Okay, so because smaller parts are needed for smaller amount of transactions, so that's why it needs to be divisible. That's the third characteristic. Fourth characteristic is it must be recognizable. It is again dollar, the US dollar is easy to recognize, and the government tries to stay ahead of the counterfeiters by changing the look and the texture of the dollar quite often. Everyone knows how the dollar bills, how $100 bills looks like, how $50 bill looks like, how $20 bill looks like. And government also made it official, so it is recognized by everyone. Then finally, the final characteristic of money is it should be rare. So if everyone had all the dollars they wanted, the value of dollars would not be there, right? If we had so many dollars, then we wouldn't have to work hard to earn dollars. But in reality, we really have to work hard, go to employment or go to a job site and then earn the money, right? So the Fed keeps the supply of dollar low enough so that it is rare and it has value to the society. So these are the characteristics of money. Now we're going to look at the functions of money. There are basically three basic functions of money. First of all, the first function is it is a medium of exchange. So again, when you want to buy something with money, it is accepted by everyone as money. In earlier times, money was not always available, and there was a barter system which did not work out very well. But with money, you can go to Walmart and buy anything you want, and Walmart will accept money as a form of payment. So it is something that is accepted by everyone as a form of payment. The second function of money is a standard or unit of value. So it is basically the value of a particular form of money is accepted and established within an economy. Like in the US, the value of money is established as the US dollars. Okay. Value in the US is described in monetary units such as dollars. In Germany, it would be described as euros. So different countries, different locations have different units or different values, different units of values for the money. And thirdly, the third function of money is basically the money must be a store of value. So when you hold money over a period of time, it will still hold the value of the purchasing power. So let's say if you have a $50 bill in your purse for 3 years, and if it does not wear out, you will still be able to buy goods worth of $50 with that bill, right? It does not depreciate. The value does not go down from $50 to $30 or $40. The value remains $50. So it acts as a store of value, and the value does not decline while it is saved. Okay, so as we said, Fed or the Federal Reserve is the entity or the government entity that basically controls the money supply in the economy. And we also learned that they want to keep the supply low enough so that money is valuable to everyone, and there's a value added to money, and everyone has to earn for it. So the money that people can access and spend is called the money supply, and this is controlled by the Federal Reserve. Okay, money supply is measured by the Fed using three primary measures depending on liquidity. Okay, so the Fed measures the money supply using three different measures of liquidity: M1, M2, and M3. We're going to look at that shortly. Okay, the more liquid the money supply is, the more easy to spend. For example, cash is the most liquid form of money supply because it can be easily spent. Whereas if you think about investment in home, just as an example, or let's say you think about a savings account, is sometimes very hard to take out money out of a savings account and then spend it. So it is less liquid. Again, so the more liquid it is, the easier it is to spend. So the supply of the money curve is given by this. The graph of the money supply is given by this. That is the supply curve for the money supply. Because it is controlled by the Fed, the money supply is controlled by the Fed, and they keep it fixed at a time, right? Because they want to keep the supply of money low enough so the value of money is there. So therefore, it is a straight line. Now, if Fed increases the money supply, then the supply curve will shift to the right. So if money supply increases, then it will shift to the right. Now, if money supply decreases, then it will shift to the left. This is decrease in money supply. So when Fed decides that they want to lower the supply of money in the economy, and they take different types of policies such as different type of monetary policies to lower the money supply, then the money supply curve will shift to the left and it will move to the left side. Okay, and if they decide to increase the money supply in the economy, then it will shift to the right side. So that is how a money supply curve will look like. Because it is controlled by the Fed, it is a vertical line. So as we were saying, money supply is measured by the Fed using three measures of liquidity. That's what we're going to look into right now. First one, so there's the three measures of liquidity are M1, M2, and M3. So M1 is the most liquid form of money supply. So this includes, if you look at the slide, it includes currency, which currency includes coins, cash, and traveler's check, and paper money. So any type of coins, paper money, cash, and traveler's checks, this is very liquid and you can easily spend them. If you go to the market, you should be able to spend cash and coins right away. So this is a very liquid form. So this is categorized under M1. In addition, checkable deposits are considered very liquid and part of the M1. So checkable deposits are deposits that you have in your checking account, right? These money are very easy to spend, right? You have a debit card, you can go to a market and just use it as cash. So they're very liquid. So we classify deposits and checking accounts as well as cash and coins and traveler's check under M1. The next measure of money supply used by the Fed is called M2. This is a little bit broader measure of money supply. This includes everything in M1. So cash, coin, paper currency, traveler's check, as well as checking account deposits. All these are included in M1. Plus, it includes savings accounts, which is less liquid, right? Because savings accounts, sometimes it's hard to take out. You may have to pay a fee to take out the money. So savings account is added in M2. And also have to add, you can also categorize money market mutual funds or IRA funds, like in retirement funds, under M2. These are investment funds. IRA or retirement funds or money market funds are basically retirement funds, and these are included in M2. Okay, it also, M2 will also include CDs, any CDs with a value of 75,000 or less. Okay, so if the value of a CD is 75,000 or less, um, sorry, if the value of a CD is 100,000 or less, then it is part of M2. CD is basically certificate of deposit, and basically that's a deposit that stays in the bank account for a period of time such as 6 months or a year, and you cannot spend money from that account, but you earn or accrue interest on that account. So that's CD. So they're less liquid, but if it's 100,000 or less, that's part of if it's less than 100,000, it's part of M2. If it's 100,000 or more, then it's part of M3. So M3 is a broad measure of money supply. It includes everything in M1, everything in M2, plus CDs with a value of 100,000 or more. Couple of things that are not included in money supply that we need to be careful about is basically, first of all, credit cards. If we have credit card balance of $4,000 or $5,000, this is a loan and this is not money to us, so that is not included in the money supply. Okay. Also, if a customer gets a loan, for let's say they got a personal loan, but the loan funds get funded into their personal checking account, then that amount is part of the money supply because it's sitting in the checking account and you can easily spend this money to buy goods and services. Finally, banks also hold cash in their vaults, like in the when you go to the branches you would see these big vaults. They hold cash in these vaults, and this cash in vaults is not circulating in the economy, it is outside of the economy, so it is not included in the money supply. So remember this, cash in vault is not included in money supply. So we're gonna do an example now like we will have some statements given to us, and then we will try to find out what M1 is, what M2 is, and what M3 is. Okay, so let's look at the example now. Here we're given with different statements with different, different people have different types of accounts or different types of transactions, and we from here we have to find out what the M1 is, what M2 is, what M3 is. Okay, and you can always go back to the slide to see what is classified under each of these measures of the money supply. To start off, we will first calculate what M1 is. Remember, M1 includes coins, currency, traveler's check, as well as deposits in checking accounts. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Tyler has, oops, I'm sorry. First one is Tyler has credit card balance of 4,000. Remember in the slide we just said credit card balance is a kind of a loan. It's not an actual money. So it's not part of money supply. So we can cross this out. This is not a money supply. It will not be part of any one of M1, M2 or M3. Next, we have David has a LOC. LOC means a line of credit or a type of loan for which 5,000 can 5,000 that he can easily cash. So the loan, he has a loan, and this loan is already sitting in an account for him, for David, that he can easily cash. So kind of this is very easily he can spend this money. So we can categorize this. It's very liquid. It's kind of sitting in a checking account. So this is part of M1. So this second one is M1. Remember, we have to add all the numbers to get the final one. Okay, then we have Mark has $50 of traveler's check. Now, traveler's check is also very liquid. If you remember, it was part of M1. So we're going to add this $50 to M1. Okay, so this is also M1. Next, we have Spencer has $1 in quarters in pocket. So he has, these coins, 4 quarter coins, and they add up to $1. So coin is again very liquid. You can easily spend in a vending machine or anything. So it's M1. So we will include this $1 under M1. Okay, let's look at the next one. Ben has 1,200 in his checking account. Remember, checking account is kind of like cash. Using a debit card, you can spend the money anytime, anywhere you want. So this is very liquid and classified under M1. So we will add this checking account balance of 1,200 as well. Then Mary has 100,000 in savings account. Now, savings account is not M1, so we don't include that. We know that. Then Erica has $2,000 in MMA investment amount. MMA is money market investment account. That is a type of investment account, but it is less liquid. It is not part of M1, so we don't consider it part of M1. Then Michael has a CD account of 75,000. CD is also a long-term, money supply, so it's not included. Okay. Finally, the last, it is not part of M1. Finally, Bank of America has 100,000 in vault in cash. So this is also not included. Remember, cash in vault of a bank is not included. So that is all for M1. So 5,000 plus 50 plus $1 plus 1,200. So if we do that, M1 comes out to be 6251. Now let's look at M2. What is the formula for M2? Let's go back and look at it. M2 is everything in M1 plus savings account plus money market investment accounts. So everything in M1 is 6251. So we start off with 6251 plus savings account. So Mary has $10,000 in savings account. So this is M2. So we will add 10,000. This is a broader measure. So 10,000. Let me write it properly. 10,000 savings account is included in M2 plus the money market account. The 2,000, that's an investment account. That is also a broader measure. It's included in M2. That is also that's included is the CD account of 75,000, because remember, CD of 100,000 or more is part of M3. But if it's less than 100,000, that's part of M2. There's still less liquid. So if we add 75,000, we are going to end up with an answer of, so let's see, let's calculate that. 10,000 plus 75,000 is 85,000. 85,000 plus 2,000 is 87,000. 87,000 plus 6251 is 93251. Now, M3, there's no additional information given. So M3 would also be equals to 93251. But if we had a CD account of greater than 100,000, that would have been added to M3. But as in this example, M3 is equals to M2 because there's no more additional information given, and these are the information we're given to calculate the money supply, different forms of money supply. So that's how you will calculate M1, M2, and M3. This is a very important example. Make sure you understand this, how we did it, and you can always go back to the slide to see what items are categorized under M1, M2, and M3. So moving on, we will look into the functions of commercial banks. So commercial banks are privately owned profit-seeking institutions. The governments do not own the private banks. They basically give out loans to businesses and individuals in order to make profit, right? So they charge an interest rate on the loans, and then they basically pay an interest on the savings or the CD accounts, and the difference between these two interest rates gives the profit to the banks. Okay, and that difference is known as the spread or the profit to the bank. Okay, banks also charge other fees, if you will see you're charged a monthly service fee of $10, or when you close a loan you have to pay a one-time loan packaging fee. These are other forms of money, ways that banks make money. Okay, but the main function of the money is to basically channel the savings, the funds of the savings account, and give it out as loans to businesses and as individuals, so they come back into the economy as investment and consumption. Money is created by commercial banks when they make loans. So when they are making out loans, they are creating money supply, and the money supply goes up. The Fed allows these by authorizing. The Fed allows this by authorizing commercial banks to make loans to the business as well as to the general public. So when banks give more loans, the money supply will go up. If the bank gives less loan, money supply will go down. If you think when a loan is repaid, let's say you sold your business and you paid off your loan on the business, then that money is coming out of the economy and going back to the bank. So money supply in that case will decrease because it's going out of the economy. We have been talking about the Fed, and we know that one of the main functions of the Fed is basically to control the money supply, but it has other roles as well. So, what are those roles of the Fed? First of all, the Fed issues currency by distributing notes through banks. Okay, so they are the ones issuing the dollar bills and the coins, and they distribute it through the banks. They also replace the worn out currency. If something is torn or worn, it's the Fed that will replace that currency. Second role is it controls money supply. We all know that it wants to keep the money supply low enough so that the value of money is there in the economy. Fed acts as a banker's bank by holding bank deposit and also giving loans to banks. So Bank of America can open a checking account with Fed for themselves, or Wells Fargo can take a loan from Fed. So that's why it can act as a banker's bank. But we as general public cannot open an account with Fed. Only the banks or the government can open an account with the Fed. The Fed also provides a check clearing house. It collects checks for banks and basically makes sure that the checks are cleared. It also provides banking services for the federal government. It can provide deposit accounts, other savings accounts, and other types of merchant account services to the federal government, such as the IRS or the Department of the Homeland Security. They can have accounts with the Federal Reserve Bank. Finally, they are basically supervising all the other private banks and making sure that all the banks are following the rules and regulations properly. So the main reason we use banks, why do we use bank? Why don't we keep our income and savings as cash in our home and we take cash every time we go for shopping? Why don't we do that? The main reason we use bank is because it is safe and it is also convenient. When you go shopping, it's very hard if you carry so much cash with you together. Rather, if you have a debit card or credit card, you can easily swipe it and buy something. Okay, so that's why we rely on bank. Okay, so under the direction of the Fed, so one way Fed controls the money supply is they require the banks that a certain portion of the deposits they collect from the customers need to be set aside as reserve, and those reserve cannot be given out as loans. Okay, and this reserve is known as the required reserve of the bank. So let's say I am putting $100 into my deposit account with Bank of America. Fed will require Bank of America to keep a certain portion of that $100 as reserve, and then the rest of the money can be loaned out as or given out as loan. Okay. Typically, the amount of reserve is like 10%. So out of 100, 10% is kept as reserve. So $10 will be kept as reserve, and then $90 can be given out as loans. So this is one way basically Fed is trying to control the money supply. It's not more so of solvency, it's more to control the money supply. If they want to increase the money supply, then they will lower this reserve requirement. And if they want to decrease the money supply, they will increase this reserve requirement. We also talk about legal reserve. This is a type of asset for the bank, okay? And it basically means legal reserve is the all the cash they hold in the vaults as well as the deposit account balances that banks have with Fed. So all the liquid assets for the bank, very liquid assets, the all the M1s, cash in, all the very liquid assets of the bank, the cash in the vault as well as the checking account deposits as well as coins. These are basically part of the legal reserve of the bank, which is an asset to the bank. Now buildings and then cars, these are assets for the car. If they own the building and the car, these are assets for the banks, but they're not part of legal reserve. Okay, they're not very liquid, so they are not part of legal reserve. We also talked what required reserve is, right? Required reserve is the reserve that banks are mandated or required to keep or set aside by Fed. And they basically do that to control the money supply, not to guarantee the solvency of the bank, but more to control the money supply. So the reserve requirements will vary, from bank to bank. whether it's a community bank or whether it's a nationwide bank. And it will also depend on the type of the deposit, if it's a savings account or if it's a checking account. It usually runs around 10%. The higher the reserve requirement, the lower the profit for the bank because they can loan out less money, and then also the less money supply in the economy. There's another term called excess reserve. Excess reserve is basically the amount of the final amount of money that banks can loan out to businesses and individuals. And the way to calculate excess reserve is it basically equals legal reserves minus required reserve. Okay, so legal reserve is basically cash in vault plus the deposits of the banks with Fed. Required reserve is the minimum amount of reserve that banks are required to keep because they because it has been set up by the Fed. And then excess reserve is basically you take legal reserve and subtract record reserve from it. Then you get excess reserve. It's the amount of money that banks can loan out in the economy to businesses and individuals. So let's do a quick example to see how to calculate required reserve amount and excess reserve amount. Okay, so the example says a bank has total customer deposits. So they have a lot of customers and the total customer deposits is $500 million. Now Fed has said the required reserve rate, the rate is 10%. That is the so whatever deposit they have, whatever deposit the bank has, 10% of that deposit has to be set aside and these cannot be loaned out. That is mandated by Fed. Now, we are also given with the information that the bank's legal reserve is only $120 million. So legal reserve is, again, remember, it is that all the cash that is in the vault as well as the deposit accounts that the bank has with the Fed. And they all add up to $120 million. So based on this information, the question I'm asking is, what is the required reserve amount? Remember, you're given with the required reserve rate, and I'm asking what is the required reserve amount, and then I'm asking what is the excess reserve amount. So let's first calculate the required reserve amount. So required reserve amount will be basically first the required reserve rate, the RR rate, multiplied by your total deposits the bank holds for customers. So deposit for customers. So in this case, the required reserve rate is 10%. So we do 10% and multiply this one the customer deposits of 500 million, and we get an answer of $50 million. Okay, so this is the amount of money that the bank has to keep aside or set aside. $50 million. Okay, and they cannot loan out these funds. Now we find out what excess reserve is because that's our next question. What is the excess reserve? Remember the formula from the slide. Excess reserve is given by legal reserve minus required reserve. Now legal reserve is 120 million. That's given here. 120 million. And then we subtract the required reserve which we just calculated, which is 50 million. So we get an answer of 70 million. This 70 million means this is the amount of funds that the bank can loan out into the economy. So out of the 120,000 legal reserve, they have to keep 50,000 as required reserve as set by the Fed, and the remaining 70 million or 70 million dollar or $70 million will be basically loaned out by the bank to businesses and to individuals for investments and personal consumption. So hopefully this example is helpful for you guys to understand how these reserves work. So how is money created in the modern banking system? When someone deposits $100 in a bank, it will have a ripple impact or a multiplied impact on the money supply. So if someone deposits $100, the money supply will go up by 5 times or 10 times the initial excess reserve amount compared to the initial excess reserve amount. How does that happen? How are we having a multiplied impact when we deposit only $100? So I want to show you this so you can understand what's happening. So let's say Sean gets $100 of gift money from me, and then he decides to deposit this $100 in Bank A, where that this is where he holds his account. So he deposits this $100 in Bank A. Now we are also given that all the banks have a required reserve. We assume, and this is given to us, is the required reserve rate, not the amount, is 10%. The rate is 10%. So whatever the deposit is, the bank has to hold back 10% of the deposit as reserve. The rest they can loan out. So if Sean deposits $100 in Bank A, the the Bank A has to keep a reserve amount of 10% of 100, which is $10. 10% of 100 is $10. So excess reserve is basically going to be 100 minus 10, $90. This is the money that is created because this is what they are loaning out to someone else. So Bank of America will loan this $90 to, let's say, Tom. Now Tom decides he wants to buy a shoe with this loan money. So he goes to Nike and buys the shoe and pays $90 to Nike. Okay. Now Nike basically comes back and deposits this $90 to their bank account or to Bank B. Okay. So when this $90 is deposited by the Nike company to $90, again, for Bank B, the rate is again 10%, so they have to keep 10% aside as reserve, as set by the Fed. So 10% of 90 is 9, and excess reserve is basically whatever the extra amount of 90 of that is 90 minus 9, which is $81. This is the money that they will loan out to someone else. So that is the $81 is created. Again, now let's say Bank B gives $81 loans to Mary. Okay, and with this $81, Mary decides she will buy some cosmetics from Revlon. Okay, from the Revlon company. So she buys the cosmetic space for this, and Revlon receives the payment. Then Revlon deposits this $81 into Bank C. Okay, and then Bank C again has a required reserve rate of 10%. So 10% of $81 needs to be held back as reserved amount, which is $8.1, and the rest can be given out as loan. So 81 minus 8.1 gives you 72.9, and then 72.9 is money is created because this is loaned out to someone else. Let's say it is loaned out to Harry. So this process continues on and on. Okay, so just because Sean deposited $100 initially in the bank, this same money is being recycled and used again and again in the economy to create a multiplied impact on the money supply. See, it's 90, 81, 72.9. The amount is going down, but it is still many steps, and we don't know where it will stop. We will know, there's a way to find out, but right now we don't know where to stop. So the process continues, and basically it has a multiplied impact on the money supply. So as economists, we want to know how much of this deposit or how this deposit will ultimately impact the money supply. How can we find out by how much the money supply will go up? Because Sean just deposited $100, how much is going to increase the money supply by? So there is a process for that, okay? The process is, first we find out the money multiplier. So the money multiplier is basically in a commercial banking system as a whole can lend by multiple of its excess reserve, because the banking system as a whole does not lose reserve, right? That is what's happening here. Going back to the example, it's saying, if we go back to this slide, the commercial banking system as a whole can lend by multiple of its excess reserve. So here the banks this commercial bank system A, B, C, D, they can lend these excess reserves several times, multiple times. Okay, and that eventually has a multiplied impact on the money supply, and that is known as the money multiplier. Okay, so the method to calculate the final increase in the money supply is basically we have two steps. To find the multiple credit expression process, we have two steps. First one is we have to find out the money multiplier. Money multiplier is basically given by 1 divided by reserve requirement rate. It's the rate. So 1 divided by the rate, not the amount. Remember, it's divided by the rate. And then step 2 is total expansion of money, which is equals to your excess reserves multiplied by the money multiplier. Okay, so these are the two steps to calculate how much the money supply will go up. So going back to this example, okay, initial deposit was $100. We know the required reserve rate is 10%. Remember, money multiplier is given by 1 divided by required reserve rate, not the amount. So again, 1, the required reserve rate is 10%. So 1 divided by 10% is equals to 10. That is the money multiplier. Now, the second step, which is the total expansion of money, which we want to know, is basically your money multiplier times your excess reserve. And excess reserve is from the first line. Okay, so when you deposit $100, the bank is holding back $10 and they are able to loan out the extra $90, which is their excess reserve. So this $90 will be taken. The first excess reserve is taken, and then we multiply it by the money multiplier. So just because Sean deposited $100 in bank A, in the economy, the money supply will go up by $900. So see, there's a multiplied impact, and that is how we are going to find out by how much the money supply will go up. Now, honestly, the reverse is also true. Okay, if someone pays back a loan to a bank, then it's also going to have a multiplied impact on the money supply, and the money supply will shrink or decrease accordingly by a greater percentage than what the loan has been repaid. So we said, when we deposit $100, the bank can lend out these excess reserve. The banking system can lend out these excess reserves several times, which eventually creates a multiplied impact. But what are some of the limitations, or what are some of the limits of this money multiplying expansion, or of this deposit expansion? What are two things? There are two things that can limit this expansion. So the first one is, let's say, going back to this example, Tom gets a loan of $90 from bank A, and then he goes to Nike to buy a shoe, but he only buys the shoe for $70. And the remaining $20, he keeps it as cash in his savings, as savings. So that extra $20 has not been used. So when you go to the next line, Nike will now only deposit 70 and not 90, and therefore required reserve amount will be 7, and excess reserve will, instead of 81, will be 63. So see, this is one way. When people do not spend the entire loan amount they are given, then it basically becomes, it acts as a reduction, or it basically reduces the impact of expansion. The second thing that can reduce the or limit the deposit expansion is basically when the economy is not doing well, and when there is recession, banks want to feel more comfortable because right now economy is not doing well, so they're very careful in giving out loans. So sometimes what they will do is they will not lend out their entire excess reserve. In addition to the required reserve, they will keep more reserve in their bank account as a safety margin. Okay, so they will not lend their full excess reserve to the borrowers because the economy is not well. So they will keep more reserve in addition to the required reserve just to make sure there's safety margin. And this will ultimately have a negative impact or limit the expansion of money supply. So how does the Fed control money supply? There are many ways the Fed controls money supply. Okay, so first of all, the Fed controls the money supply in two different ways: the major tools and minor tools. Okay, so major basically means these are the primary tools used to meet the Fed's objective to control money supply. Minor tools are basically indirect ways to control the money supply. Okay, so the three first we are going to focus on the major tools, then we're going to talk about the minor tools. And this whole process of controlling the money supply by the Fed using major tools and minor tools is known as monetary policy. Okay, so the three major tools that are used by the Fed to control money supply are changing the required reserve ratio. So I want to put required reserve ratio. Remember, the Fed requires the banks to keep a reserve aside on their deposits from customers. Then the also changing the federal funds rate or the discount rate. We're going to discuss what that means. And then they conduct open market operations. We're also going to discuss how they control the money supply using these methods. So first of all, we're going to talk about the required reserve requirement. This is a very powerful tool. Among all of the tools, this is the most powerful tool. Okay. So again, we have learned that the Fed will require the banks to keep a certain amount of the deposit from their customers as a reserve, which they cannot loan out. Now, if they want to increase the money supply, they will lower this required reserve. Then banks will have to keep lower reserve and they can loan out more. If they want to decrease the money supply, then they will increase this required reserve ratio. What will happen then? Banks will have to keep more reserves and they will have less excess reserves to be loaned out to businesses and individuals. So that's a one way that the Fed can control money supply. It's a very powerful tool, but it is not often used by the Fed. They hardly change the required reserve rate for banks. The second major tool to control the money supply is the discount rate or the federal funds rate. So what is that? What is the discount rate? So remember, banks such as Wells Fargo and Bank of America, they can take loans from the Fed. So the interest rate that the Fed charges on the loans is called the discount rate. Okay. So if if the Fed wants to increase money supply, they will lower this interest rate. When they lower this interest rate, the banks will take more loans from Fed and give those money out as more loans to commercial businesses and individuals, and therefore money supply will go up. On the other hand, if they want to decrease money supply, they will basically increase the interest rate. So banks will be discouraged to take loans from the Fed because interest rates are high and it's expensive. So they won't take any loans. They will give less loans to the economy and therefore money supply will go down. The third type of major tool that the Fed uses to control money supply is called open market operations. This is the most common and most frequently used tool by the Fed. It basically involves buying and selling securities to influence or control the money supply. And specifically, the Federal Open Market Committee, the department, runs these operations under the Fed. So under the Fed, there is a committee called Federal Open Market Committee, and they are responsible for running the open market operations. So what happens during Fed open market operations is they buy and sell securities with public and banks. Okay. So during recession, when people are spending less and the economy is down, the government and the Fed wants the money supply to increase. So what they do at that time is they're gonna buy the bonds back from the public and the general and the banks. When they are buying the bonds are coming to the Fed, but in return for the bonds, they are making payments to the people and the banks. So these payments come or go as income to the people and the banks, and they can use these money to spend or to loan out. And that way the money supply will go up, right? So during recession, they will they will buy securities from the people, which in turn people will get payment and then money supply will go up. On the other hand, during inflation, when Fed wants to decrease the money supply, they will sell securities to banks and the public. So when they sell securities or when they sell investment securities to the banks and public, the Fed receives payment from the public. So the money is coming out of the economy into the Fed. So the money supply is going down, which means spending is going to go down. So that is how they will control the money supply. And this is the most smoothest way to control the money supply, by selling and buying securities. So open market operations can be temporary or permanent. Short-term interventions in the market is done to smooth the interest rate, whereas long-term permanent open market operations are done to change the long-term money supply. So again, these are the most frequently and effectively used. It's most effective as well. So this is the one that is being used. Required reserve ratio is most powerful, but it has a very sharp impact on the economy. So it is not used very often by the Fed. We're now going to look into the minor tools. We talked about the major tools, the three major tools: required reserve ratio, the discount rate, changes in the discount rate, and the open market operations, which involves buying and selling of securities. Now, the Fed also has minor tools, which are indirect ways to control the money supply or change the money supply. So they are margin requirements, credit controls, and moral suasion. So what are those? Margin requirements is basically, if you think about margin requirements, let's say if you're trying to buy a home, 100% of the home will not be financed. The bank as well as the Fed requires that the buyer has to put some down payment, 3%, 10%, or 20% towards the purchase of the home, and the rest will be financed by the bank. So the bank does not do 100% financing. Okay, so there is some level of contribution from the buyer. So that is how they can control the money supply, because the entire amount is not going to buy the home. A lower amount is going because buyer also has to contribute money into that asset. The second one is credit control. So credit controls means, when you're giving out a loan, whoever applies for the loan does not get a loan, right? You have to be eligible, you have to be qualified, you have to have a good credit score, good income source, as well as experience in order to get a loan. Not everyone with a bad score can get credit. So that's another way you control your money supply. You don't give loan to everyone who apply, but to people who have good credit and standard. Now, during recessions, you'll probably be more lenient, and you will try to give more loans out, so you will probably lower your credit control requirements. During inflation, when you're trying to decrease the money supply, you will increase your credit control, and therefore you will give out less loans. Finally, the another minor tool used by the Fed is called the moral suasion. Moral suasion is kind of like they give guidances to the private banks. Hey, economy is moving towards recession, so you should loan out more. Or economy is moving towards inflation, you should loan less funds. So it is a guidance against the recommendation. It is a suggestion. It's not a requirement to the banks. For instance, during an exam, I would say, hey, focus on lecture 12 because that's going to be important. And most of the stuffs on the exam will be from lecture 12. That is kind of like moral suasion. I'm giving you a hint to do this, but you don't have to do it. You're not obligated to do it, but then you get some guidance from your experienced teacher. Okay. So that is what the Fed does to the banks. We also talk about easy and tight money. Again, this is part of the monetary policy. Basically, when the Fed is trying to increase the money supply by buying securities, lowering discount rate, or lowering reserve requirement, any three of them, it can be a combination or any three, or any one of them. Then it is known as easy money. So when the Fed is trying to increase the money supply in the economy, it is called easy money. Okay. When, on the other hand, when the Fed is trying to reduce or slow down the money supply, it is called tight money. Okay, so in order to increase the money supply, the Fed will perform any or a combination of the following. They will buy securities. Again, if they buy securities, they'll make payments to the people. People will have more money and they'll spend in the economy. Okay, so that's one way they can increase money supply. Under easy money policy, they will also reduce the required reserve ratio. So banks will keep lower reserve and give out more loans to businesses and individuals. So money supply will go up. Or they will lower, or they can lower their discount rate, which means banks will take more loans from the Fed and money supply will go up. When this happens, the following will happen. So when these actions are taken by the Fed, it leads to an increase in money supply, right? That is the main purpose. So when the money supply increases, your interest rate will decrease because the demand curve stays the same, downward sloping, but your vertical money supply curve shifts to the right. When it shifts to the right, you will see the new equilibrium point between the demand and supply curve is at a lower price or lower interest rate. So your interest rate decreases. So when your interest rate decreases, your investments will go up, and that investments will cause the aggregate demand to go up. When aggregate demand goes up, it's going to create more employment and output and income, which in turn will increase GDP. So that's the one way to bring out the economy from recession by implementing the easy money policy. Another type where we want to decrease the money supply is the tight money policy. And in order to decrease the money supply, the Fed can sell securities. So when they sell it, people make payment to the Fed. So money is going out of the economy. Money supply decreases. Required reserve ratio is higher, and discount rates or interest rates for the Fed loans also are increased. When this happens, basically it causes a decrease in the money supply. When there is a decrease in the money supply, vertical money supply curve will shift to the left. Demand curve does not change, so interest rate will go up. When interest rate goes up, aggregate demand and business investment will fall, employment and output will fall, but then prices of goods will fall because of that. So inflation will go down, and it will also have a negative impact on GDP. GDP will also come down. So that's kind of in a nutshell banks and monetary policy. So it's very important you understand the examples I did. It's very important you understand what easy and tight monetary policy is, and what are the major tools and minor tools of monetary policy. But that's the end of this lecture. I'm going to stop here, and next class we're going to cover lecture 10. Thank you very much.